And we are first going to dive into Photoshop real quick. Volskaya Industries top down. Can everyone see Photoshop?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Possum. Got that, and now we begin. Alright, let's talk about Volskaya. Volskaya, like other two CP maps, has one huge big thing in common, and it is, boop, that big choke point right there. That choke point, like with Hanamura, like with Anubis, goodbye Kyle, like with Anubis, like with Hanamura, he just accidentally joined. I swap him back. Welcome back. Like with Hanamura and Anubis, this choke point can be the thing that stalls out an entire game. And so that choke point, oh my goodness, oh, I'm on the wrong layer. Look at me, I'm so ready for this. This is why I tend not to do these last minute VOD reviews. Alright, they tend to be things that can stall out a defense very easily. They're the things that kind of control a full hold. When we talk about Volskaya, generally speaking, what we're talking about is a defense that sets up somewhere in the realm of like here, and has a fallback point pathway like back through this space, right? So we're holding up here initially, we're dealing damage as they're kind of pushing in through left or through right, or even through center, it doesn't really matter. But generally speaking, this becomes that point of contact, this red area right there. As a result of that, it is very important that we establish that front line so that we don't give away this choke point for free. If we give away this space or this space for free, what ends up happening is we end up giving all of this space away for free. Because the point that we have to narrow in on just kind of increases, right? Instead of shooting at this line, we're having to shoot at this line, or we're having to shoot at this line. And it becomes infinitely more complex. They have infinitely more space to move around in. And in that sense, the space that they control, the space that they influence, is a lot less restricted. And so it's a lot easier for them to dodge maybe some combos that you want to land, or things like that. Because of this proof of Overwatch, what you see on a lot of 2CP maps is you see a lot of like a Junkrat, or you see maybe some Sim, anything that can send spam down these choke points to weaken any sort of push coming in here. And to that end, we can then make the assumption that spam tends to be pretty good when it comes to 2CP. In general, spam is pretty effective at stopping any sort of push or hindering any sort of attempted push into the space that you are trying to control. So far, are we on the same page?
Yes.
Cool. So with that in mind, with spam characters being a default, that's pretty good. Let's talk about some very specific attack paths that tend to happen on Volskaya. And in Volskaya, I would say that there are 4 standard attack paths that you will run into. There is number 1, pushing from this choke point in through the forklift. This is forklift right here. If you don't know this, call it. This is forklift. Named so for the forklift right there. They can push in through forklift and then down through this main choke, in which they try to brawl you, usually in this space, trying to take control of this mega. And as a result of that, by pushing you back into here, they take control of point. Option 2 is pushing down the other side of main and pushing in across. And what you see happen a lot with attack path number 2 is you take an initial fight, say, right here in this space, and then your team kites back, kind of trying to stabilize. And then instead of pushing your shield, what they're going to do is they're going to push around. And the reason you do that is if you're playing a very mid-range comp, so you're playing like a soldier or an Ashe, something that wants to really kind of sit in this spot or take this high ground and then shoot across the point, right? Because often you have your support sitting in there safely around the mega and trying to kind of, when you're cutting back, so you have your front line there, when you're cutting back, your supports really want to play like in this spot. Or even over here, which is even more better for the enemy team to push this way, because then what they do is when your support tries to retreat from this mini, they get shot on for free by anything coming across from this high ground or this choke. It's a lot to take in, but are you with me so far? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, so you have attack path 1, you have attack path 2. 3 and 4 are more uncommon, they're just high ground variations. Attack path 3 being a deviation from 1, where instead of pushing down main, you push up through the high ground in an effort to take this high ground space away and put pressure on this room from this staircase, from above. Right? That tends to be very effective at flushing teams out of sitting on this mega, which is a priority for your defense because it can instantly heal your tanks up, and it can stabilize your supports if they're getting dove. So taking this high ground is intended to flush your team out of holding this space, forces them out onto point, and then they can just kind of farm you from there, or indeed take this inner choke space. It's attack path 3. It features that high ground and that mega control. It's a very dangerous thing to fight for. And then likewise, so we call this 3, likewise attack path 4 is a variation of 2, where you push into left room, you push up, and then you take this high ground here. Similar reasons as to why you would take this one, but in this case, this is like a long range comp. This is like when you're playing like with a Widowmaker, or an Ashe, like Widow Ashe, where he wants to sit up here and just kind of go boom, boom, and any sort of person caught out in this mini just becomes like free farm, right? Often you'll see like if you're having an enemy team attack with double shield, you will see them try and take this high ground because the pathways to attack this high ground, right? Now consider that we're still on the defense. How do you attack this? You have pretty much two options. You can either try and trade with them, in which case they have the high ground advantage, or you try and send someone up around long, or you have someone with mobility try and attack them from there. You just jump up onto them, and that's not going to be the case for every defense you run. Right. So to recap, we have 4 standard attack paths. We have 1 coming main, 2 coming main, 3 coming a variation high ground over your mega, and 4 coming a variation high ground contesting the point space. Do we agree with that? Do we understand that? Are there any questions about why that's true? Going once, going twice. Sold. Okay. So we understand that there are 4 variations of attack paths, which means what is tending to be the most optimal thing to kind of defend against that kind of stuff? Well, we understand initially that if we hold that choke point space, that spam tends to be very good. Just because they're going to be grouped up, they're going to be very weak. But there is another reason, and I wonder if anyone can kind of give me a guess as to what it would be. Why spam good?
All of the attack paths like that you listed, like helpful, like spam is favorable there.
Yes. Yeah. True, but I'm looking for a different way of kind of saying that. Because there's a different comprehension to why that is true.
Long sightlines.
Long sightlines tend to be a little bit weaker for dive, but yes, I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you with choke points. If you look at every single attack path, right, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. There is something in common with all of them. 1 and 2 feature a choke point here, and they are weak to any sort of counterflank on top of this shack right here. Think about playing that Junkrat, right? The Junkrat can not only shoot you as you cross here, but as you come across through your attack point to 2, Junkrat's also going to be laying in damage into anything that's sitting in this space right here, right? He's very, very versatile. And the same goes for Pharah. This is why I made that Pharah call, and why you might have been a little bit apprehensive about that. The Pharah is very strong at picking off anyone who's trying to rotate into this attack path, but isn't able to stop, right? If they stop right there, what can your team do in return? I'm going to ask this specifically to the DPS. So Val, Venom, Frosty, Frosty's not here, but Val and Venom. What specifically is good about making enemy teams stop in this open space?
Free juice.
Go ahead, and I'll ask Val first.
Just free juice.
Free juice, okay. Venom.
I'd say blood theory.
What's that?
Like, blood theory.
Blob theory. I like where you're thinking, but I'm gonna actually say blob theory doesn't apply as much. If you manage to stall out an enemy team in this space, what you can then do is have your tank line, which has been retreating, suddenly they can push back up on this corner, and your other DPS, be it your May or whatever, suddenly your tanks can farm across this space pretty easily, right? If they push into you, you kite back. If they push to point, you match the rotation. You don't need to push them in that open space, what you have done is you've stalled out their push. By sitting in that open space, what they're missing is they're missing natural cover. Natural cover is something I mention a lot for our tank players when you want to recharge your resources. I mention as stabilizing. But this open space is very, very versatile for your DPS to kind of stall out an enemy team and to make them waste their resources while your team can then push up as well. And that is, as you said, Spoon, a result of they want to get to this choke point, and this is really good for spam, but by making them stay out in the open, that's even better. Because often when we're running that spam, we're able to pocket this junk with, say, we have a Mercy, or we have the Pharah and a Mercy, and this suddenly gets even more dangerous for them. Does that make sense? Are there any questions to that?
I have two pretty unrelated questions. One, what is blob theory? Like, quick 30-second rundown.
Do you want me to answer that? Or do you want to ask both questions?
I'll answer that, yeah.
Okay. Blob theory is the theory of kind of how a brawl comp or how a tank line wants to orient themselves. So what I'm going to quickly do, I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to hide the background. Whoa, that's disgusting. Hide layer 1. Alright, so we're on layer 2. So blob theory says, and if I go back to my pen, I'm going to increase my pen size. Whoops. Increase my pen size and zoom out. Blob theory says that if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say 5 characters in sort of a formation, right? And we are pushing down a hallway. Blob theory is the theory that these group of players together looking in one direction are not really a group of players, but what they are is a solid blob that is facing in that one direction. And that's very, very dangerous. Instead, what we want to do before we fight that blob, or before we consider that blob, is we want to break them into smaller parts. Now, how do we do that? Generally, this is the concept that you'll hear a lot about in DPS or as an off tank, about taking an off angle. Consider that this hallway right here is Rialto point 1, and that these red X's are our defense. So what we have is, we have this corner right here, we have that corner right here with like the room in it, right, with this doorway, and the kind of doorway over here, right? That's Rialto point 1. We have this group of 5 players. Blob theory states that the most effective way to attack those players is generally not going to be from head-on, right? You don't want to fight a blob head-on, but what you want to do is you want to get a DPS or an off-tank in a position where they can sit here or here and kind of take shots at the back of these 2 players right here. And when they do that, suddenly the blob that we're looking at is not this one big sphere, but it is actually, and I'm going to use my eraser a little bit. Boink, 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 boink. It's not one big sphere, but actually then it becomes 2 spheres. So we have a sphere here and a sphere here. And now these are looking in opposite directions. We have one looking this way, and we have one kind of looking out back this way. So suddenly, what we're now fighting is we're not fighting a single team fight, we're fighting 2 team fights. And by creating that advantage where you make 2 people look around for a single person, right? Goodness, my marker size right here. Suddenly this blob of 3, right? 1, 2, 3, is actually a lot easier to push as a group of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the optimum time for us to take that fight because these guys are split. They're not considering fighting as a team. They're considering fighting as 2 smaller teams, and so therefore it's easier to fight them. So in essence, what we're trying to do is we're taking a blob of enemies and we're trying to split them in half so that we're fighting a more favorable engagement for any one group of us. And often at this level that we are playing at Gold, you will see that that tends to be a major contributor to fight losses as teammates getting distracted from one another. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other?
Second question is, why did you want me to play Lucio over like Mara when we attacked her?
That's attack. We're focused on defense right now, so I'm gonna reserve the answer for that.
Okay,
all right. So we are looking at 4 attack paths. We understand that spam tends to be pretty strong. Tanks understand generally where the enemy team can come from, and so we understand as a result of those attack paths that when we I gotta switch back to my marker adjustment. We understand that generally when we hold this point, we're then looking to kite back, and primarily look to defend 1 because this is where our supports rest most vulnerable. And that our most lethal push is going to be if they take that high ground, right? We're clear on this. if we understand that, then let's kind of swap over and we take a look at our comp and how we chose to set up our initial defense. Change windows, screen 1, and then go to OBS and change to window 1 over Photoshop. Cool. Let's hop into it.
Ready for battle.
Alright, the attack has started. We are running Ryan Zarya, right? We have Ryan Zarya. We have Soldier and Moira. And these 4 are going to want to tend to play around, right, this attack path defense. Separately, we also have Farah and Mercy. Farah and Mercy operate separately from our blob group in the sense that they are kind of playing that spam, but they're playing that spam in a very mobile fashion. And I wonder if anyone can tell me why. Oh goodness, the hiccups. Can anyone tell me why having that mobile spam is so particularly effective with the rest of the comp that we've chosen to run?
It automatically sets up that like second part of blob theory.
Yeah. The Pharah, if we're considering like the Pharah being able to use her recon boost, like getting in and then splitting them, yeah, that's certainly part of the reason. But also, what we can look at is we can look at the mobility of the rest of our team, right? We have legs being able to hold this high ground effectively without Pharah's help with the boost, and in doing so, the combination of the soldier and hopefully the Pharah putting damage any sort of push this way or any sort of push this way is going to buy enough time for a usually slow rotating set of 3, Moira, Ryan, and Zarya. Right? Ryan's not the fastest guy without the Lucio. To be able to rotate to answer any sort of push that the enemy team puts down. Consider if they were to push 3, right? How do you best rotate against 3? Arguably, you could say that the best way to do that is to kind of come up and try and hold in here, or is to hold inside. And by the time that they're right here, you already want to have your defense up. You don't want to be caught sleeping. You don't want to be caught in rotations. That's a very easy way to get picked and to be able to already start down. Alternatively, if you look at them, if, say, for example, they were playing the Lucio, and they are playing the Lucio, and they want to fast push this way, our Soldier and Pharah, the mobile Pharah, are looking to kind of, as you say, delay them in this open space where they're inherently weaker without the natural cover, for long enough for our tank line and our Moira to then rotate and maybe try and take this defensive path as well. So you're not entirely wrong that blob theory is correct, but blob theory enables our tanks to rotate correctly in that space. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yup.
Cool. Let's take a look and see how we play it. Alright, they're running the Sigma. They take rotation, attack number 2. They beat us to point, but we have picked the Ana. You see that in this open space, we've already gotten the Ana pick. They're down the main support. We have the fight in our favor. And even though our tanks are slow to rotate, we're already kind of +1 in the fight. I will say it is a little bit dangerous for our Moira to have already rotated 2 point. They have not even started the contest on there yet, so it's okay to kind of reserve your fade there instead of rotating to point to play with your tank line and let them take that initial brunt of attack. And we continue watching. Our soldier drops. I actually don't like that our soldier drops here. You have this high ground advantage, and the only thing that's going to contest you on this high ground is the Sigma, maybe the Sombra, and the Lucio. And the Lucio's already their main heal. Their Lucio can't afford to pick you up here. So I would say, Venom, you don't need to drop to fight to kind of contest that. It's okay to hold that high ground advantage. Our Pharah is kind of free farming in the back. They don't even bother to rotate to answer for it. Our front line cleans up the Rhine. Our Moira is a bit low, but that's free healing. And then we're resetting for a second. All right, Ben, what are we immediately doing here?
More fight planning.
Correct, we're fight planning. What's the order in which we fight plan?
We ask what ults they have.
Nope.
And no.
No. What are we going to use if we can use anything? We don't have any ults coming up. We have no semblance of we're going to get an ult next fight. So, all right, we don't have any ults, is what you say first. Second thing, what do you do?
I have no clue.
You had it. You said it.
Oh, we ask what ults they have.
Correct. You ask what ults they have. If you suspect that they are going to say Flux, who do we lose? Val, Venom. We lost Spoon. Welcome back, Spoon. If we think that they are going to Flux, then
Did you say we lost me?
Someone dropped out the call and then came back. I thought it was you. If we think they're going to Flux, then we're immediately talking, all right, how do we play around Flux? right? Where, play spread out, play around this corner, for example. Play in a way that we can enable our supports to heal us through that flux, is what we're saying. If we're in the case where, all right, they don't have any ults, we are just going to talk about where we're going to hold and how we're going to hold there. You can say, all right, reset on truck, reset on forklift, reset high ground. You have an amount of options, but you guys need to be vocal. If it is silent, you are doing something wrong. Everyone should be on the same page as to where they are and why they are there. Understood? All right, I'm going to be on you guys a little bit more about that because it's been pretty quiet in the mid-fights. That is going to be the habit. What else do we have? What else do they have? How are we going to play it? Okay?
Just for my information, why do we do it in that specific order?
We want to be proactive with our ultimates. If we are asking what we are going to do first, we are already thinking about how we are going to play the fight. If we then say, okay, we are going to Nanoblade, and then we say, look at their ults, we say, they have Transcendence. Maybe, in that case, you say, we grab to bait Transcendence. You are thinking about what you are going to do to get their ultimates, not what they're going to do and how you're going to respond to that. You guys want to be the proactive team. If you are playing from behind, you're playing at a risk of over-investing on your ultimates, say investing into a lost fight, or playing from behind in the ult economy game. And that's not something you ever want to be doing if you can help it. When you are talking about, okay, we're going to grab Dragon, then you're immediately looking to grab Dragon. And if you are not considering what ults they have, that's fine, as long as you were proactive in that. It's more important to me that you guys know that you need to be proactive and the ones dictating the terms of the fight than being responsive to how a fight is happening in front of you. There are going to be times where they are going to catch you off guard by being more proactive than you, but that is what we reserve reactive ultimates for. That's when we reserve, like Coalescence, for example, can be a reactive ult because it builds so quickly. And the same with Valkyrie. In this sense, we do not have a support line that is very reactive. We have Moira. Moira wants to be very aggressive with her tank line, and Valkyrie is kind of sort of its own flavor of ult that I don't really want to get into because of time. But in general, we are looking to do it in that order because we are trying to be proactive. Does that answer your question?
Yup.
All right, any other questions about that? All right, Komodo hype, let's go. I speed it back up.
I hate that so much.
That's so much funnier. All right, we get the picks. We should be holding tab, looking for maybe their swaps. We see they swap onto the Ash. Looking to get the initial poke down. The self bubble is a little bit unnecessary. They're not really grouped up, Ben. You can look to do early poke there and take damage into your health for your supports to get ult charge. Alright, your Pharah calls out about the Ash, your Pharah's poking them through. See, Venom, this is what I mean, right? Consider that if you were on that high ground there, consider the angle that Pharah has right now. Consider if you were the soldier, look at that fucking Lucio. That Lucio is free as fuck. That Sombra over there, what is she going to do to you? They don't have anything on their team that can contest you on that high ground. And if you need to rocket boost up there, you put yourself in an immediately stronger position where their ability to contest you is very limited. It is okay to play as that group of three because you have your main support playing with your tank line, right? If your tank line with a high charge Zarya and a Rhine with a lot of resources goes down with your Moira, man, we gotta have a talk about that group of three because it's not on you, right? Soldier is not going to engage too much when staying behind that tank line, though you do have the option of retreating from that high ground to play with your tank line if you feel like that's a better rotation. I would say it's more important for you to be looking to take this off angle, or even when you reset, even this off angle. Because this is where they pushed from last time. You can kind of guess. All right, if they try that again, I can just take this high ground. They have to push into me. If they come up to push up top, your legs. You just fucking sprint across. All right. You play from distance. You keep them at distance. You always put yourself in the optimal position. And for soldier or any hit scan character with mid or long range, that's going to be taking as much high ground as you can. Understand?
I understand.
Cool. Putting a lot of damage on their side. The Rhine gets picked. You guys should go fully hard here. Going hard, we get the Sigma. Alright, now we're looking to clean up, cleaning up, cleaning up, cleaning up, cleaning up. Alright, fight's over. What are we doing, Ben?
We're fight planning.
Alright, how do we fight plan?
God, if I can remember.
You can do it.
I would say like
Step
what
one.
ults are they gonna use?
Step one.
But that's step 2. I forgot what step 1 was.
Step one is what ult are we going to use? What are we going to do? What are we going to do and how are we going to do it? Step 2, what are they going to have to counter that? If they don't have anything, Komodo hype. And step 3 is, okay, if we need to make any variations, how do we do that? So you look at this fight. We have barrage. How are we going to play the barrage? Thara, concussion yourself in barrage. I will bubble you. Right, bubble barrage. Damage boost barrage. That's great. Do we think they're going to have anything else to contest that? They've really not gotten a great fight. It's very unlikely of any contest that. So we just kind of, if we're tracking those odds roughly correctly, then we know that we have a kind of a free barrage coming up if we are proactive and quick with it.
Yeah.
For our Farah player, what do they have to contest your barrage? They have hands and they have Sigma Shield are the big ones. Also Immort, though Immort's a little bit more of a finicky thing. So we need to make sure that if you're looking to barrage, you either are doing it in an area where you can get enough value before they can react, or that you get those cooldowns out of them before you hit the barrage button. In a similar way, you want to get Diva out of mech before she eats your barrage.
My mic was muted. I answered you.
Okay.
But,
Either way, you understand.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Set up in a good position. Venom, excellent. Taking the high ground. I love that. Watching out for the dynamite. I'm gonna check something. See if I can ding you for this spoon. Let me see your. Okay, your resource is fine, but I see you kind of like dropping your healing. You don't need to waste your resources like that. You need to be a little bit like. I do that too, where I just kind of like instinctively just go, oh, left click, even if I'm at full. Sometimes it's going to come down to that very last bit of juice. So be a little bit more conservative with that if you can help. Excellent. You use the orb before you throw out the coalesce. Everyone gets shattered. That's rough. We gotta be more careful about that derp. Get the barrage. The barrage comes in a little bit late. And you're in the open. Good stall. Moira puts you back to the enemy. Ooh, that's scary. You get the Lucio on you. This is gonna be a lost fight though. Okay, let me look at that one more quick. We can break down that fight, then we can move on to second point. Alright, so we're holding up close. We have barrage. We want to barrage early. We want to be the ones to have them walk into barrage. Okay, we have the ult advantage, and I see you kind of shooting into this choke point. That's great. You as tanks don't need to kite back yet. You want to kind of get as much as you can out of them before they push this forward. And the reason is because of your barrage. Because barrage is going to be such a vulnerable moment for your Pharah, for anyone who's going to be ulting at very close range for their team in a stationary position, it's important that you try and get as much out of them as you can. You have your Moira at full resources, you have a high charge Zarya. Zarya, I believe, had both bubbles, and your Rhine Shield is fairly recharged. You guys don't need to kite back early here, right? Your Soldier has high ground, your Mercy has high ground, your Pharah has high ground. You are giving them this space, and you don't need to do that. The only time you want to do that is if you get all of the resources that you think they have to contest barrage out, and then your Pharah is set and ready to go in close and aggressive. But by pushing out this early, what you're saying is, okay, we're going to make this space, we're just going to give up this space. We're going to make a 50-50 space. And that's not something you want to do when you have that barrage advantage for them.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good co. Your Venom gets picked. You hit by the Shatter. At this point, if they get another pick, I'm going to call it a lost fight, especially because you've already invested co. Let's see. They hit the Dynamite. They hit the Rock. They hit the Pin. This is rough times. They hit the Mercy. At this point, I think you call lost fight. You're down your flex support. You're down your hit scan DPS. They've gotten all this space, and all you guys really need to do is try and kite it out, stabilize as much as you can, and delay as much of this point time as you can. If you can get picks with the Brawl for your Moira, for your two tanks, for the Fire, if the Founder can kite back, then maybe you can kite out long enough for the Soldier and the Mercy to get back. Otherwise, what you're really looking to do here is kind of continue to preserve your ult economy advantage and then die on point to kill time. Barrage gets the Baptiste, but you get picked as a result. Moira's in dangerous territory. Moira fades into point. Alright, tanks, you split here. Remember, this is something that happens a lot. This is something I dinged you guys for on Ilios, on Lighthouse. When you guys are going somewhere, you two need to coordinate. Be it Derv saying, kite back to Mega. Derv saying, kite back to Shack. Ben saying, kite back to corner of point. You guys just need to communicate where you are going. Because your Zarya went this way, right? Your Ryan and Moira went this way, and your high charge Zarya gets picked. And that is the only thing, unless you get the Shatter of Gods, that is going to stop this fight from being an immediate loss for you. So just make sure you guys communicate a little bit more aggressively about where you are going together. Remember, we play quick play drive. I say, kite back to forklift, kite back to forklift, kite back to mega. We're always very specific on where we're going and how we're going there. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Shield's gonna break. The line's gonna get you. That's fine. All right. They take first point. Are there any questions about why, how, who, what, when, where, or even when they take first point? Going once. Going twice, 3 times sold. All right, so you guys lose first point. You invest Co, you invest Shatter, you invest Barrage. So we lose 3, and if we're paying a little bit of attention, we can assume that they're coming up on 3, maybe 4 ultimates, depending on what we've seen them use, how we think their players have been doing. So now I swap back to Photoshop, though I'm going to let them cap first because it's an annoying sound. All right, screen, change windows. Volskaya, go live, and then I switch my OBS to Photoshop. Alright, let's talk about second point. Who here has ever played a round of competitive where you get full held on second point and you're like, well, what was I even supposed to do then?
Me.
Yeah. Volskaya's second point kind of depressing. Alright. Luckily for us, it is kind of easy when we think about where we're going to defend from and how. There are generally 2 attack paths, unless you have a crazy, like say a sim composition going up and through the elevators, right? Generally speaking, there are 2 paths that they're going to take. They're going to come in through main, and though some may split this way, but that's kind of like attack path 1.1. So they're going to come in through this main to point, right? Attack path 1. Or they're going to push up onto this high ground and try and like take this contest, and then they're going to push out onto second. We're going to call this attack path 2. In both cases, there is a commonality with the level geometry of Volskaya's second point. Can anyone tell me what it is that I'm looking at and why it's very good for Volskaya's second?
Very much high ground.
Yeah, a little bit more specific to space control. Going once, going twice. I'm gonna ask the tanks. I'm gonna ask Ben and Derv to take a guess here as to what is common, or what's a commonality about Volskaya's second with these attack paths that you guys can make use of.
Choke points.
Think more about space.
Oh.
More about like space
There's
control.
a lot of corners.
Corners, okay. Not quite what I'm looking for. Ben, you want to take a shot?
I can't think of anything, honestly.
All right. There is something very common about both these attack points, and that is that this high ground right here contests both of these spaces. If we understand when you talk about something like, say, Oasis, for example, or more specifically, like, remember Rialto first point, we're taking and holding that high ground over that long sight line on the very first straightaway on Rialto first, contests not only that high ground by default because you are there, but also the sight lines of that high ground. And so consider that this space up here contests this high ground, which contests attack point 2, and also threatens aggressively this kind of space right here that they want to push in on attack point 1. Not only that, but in both cases you have this long push coming up before they even begin to split on their attack path that you can then kind of poke through with this high space. So in both cases for tanks, controlling this high ground space initially is very, very, very important, because what you do is you allow yourself to threaten choke point space 2 and threaten space 1 by default of sight lines. Now in this case we are playing Rein Zarya. Rein Zarya has a little bit more trouble holding this space because of the immobility of both of those tanks. What you can do when you win a fight, you can push out and push up onto the escalator, but I know that kind of feels weird, right? Why would I push into their space in order to take my space back? Nito, for Zarya, you can actually right click, kind of hop yourself across this space. And for Rhine, if you do it right at the right angle, you can also charge across this space as well. That's kind of a map top tip for you. But in general, what you find is that on second point, Brawl for Rhine Zarya is actually a little bit weaker when you consider space that you want to hold initially. So in general, when we look at this space, we say that this space is very, very important to control, this high ground space, right? We agree with that. Is there any objection to that? Okay, so that high ground space is initially important. So we can assume that attack path 2 will tend to be a little bit more common, especially for comps that have a lot of sustain or a lot of poke. In which case, we remember their comp, they're playing like an Ashe, they're playing a double shield. They do want to take this high ground space. The Ashe wants to set up here, the Sigma wants to set up here, and they want to take off that initial kind of see what we can get for how we get there. They want to give time for their Doomfist to either go on the flank, and then set up for a dive onto your main point or onto your backline supports. Or they want to sit up here, chip away at your Rhine resources, your Rhine shield goes low, you're forced to play in this corner, and then their Rhine pushes up, and suddenly you're playing something like that, right, where you're looking this way, they're looking this way, and it's just a bit like, it's a bit of pain, because they've already won the resource war. Do we understand kind of the concept that I'm talking about, where Brawl is a little bit weaker, the Rhine Zarya? Cool. In general, what I would suggest is that Dive, as a defense on second point, tends to be stronger. You have the Winston with a lot of mobility to kind of get where he needs to go, either as holding the space initially because he doesn't have to burn resources to get there by the time they push there, or to dive back as a counter dive for anyone looking at your supports as well, or if they're playing the Doomfist. I know, Ben, that makes you want to default to playing Ball, but I would actually make the argument that Diva is a little bit stronger. For two reasons. Primarily, the first being her ultimate being able to clear the space if you were in a crisis moment, and the second being for defense matrix, where you can buy that space or buy and eat any sort of damage that comes in if you guys need to dive any sort of painful defense right there. So in general, I suggest Dive or a very mobile set of tanks, if we consider new tanks that come out that aren't even in the game yet, a very mobile set of tanks for that kind of defense. As a result here, we also consider our Far Mercy that we were playing on point 1. And Far Mercy, with that sky mobility, that ability to kind of move between these platforms, move between this high ground, have that long range poke, as being innately effective at the damage boost and the far rockets, because we already know where they're going to go. And if they give you this space, and they try and push space 1, just like you did when you held here, and they tried to push through, you can get free shots into this open space, like this is open space. I know I'm talking very fast, that's because we don't have a lot of time, but I hope I'm being clear. DPS, if you have any questions, or anyone has any questions, feel free to interrupt me now, because I'm just trying to make sure we get through it all, and then we can look at some of the gameplay. So, any quick questions for that?
Not from me.
Cool. Val, any questions from you?
Nope.
Cool. For supports, we look at things that can enable us to hold this space up here, right? If we're playing that Rhine Zarya, we want to play something that is good at maintaining the space control. There are two supports that come to mind that are very effective at holding high ground space. Can anyone tell me which two they are that I'm thinking of? Going once, going twice.
Sorry, I zoned out and missed the question.
Which two supports are innately very good at holding high ground space?
Baptiste and Lucio.
I'm gonna say Baptiste counts as half a point. I'm thinking Brig and Lucio. Brig especially wants to look at this choke point and say, ooh, someone came up there, whip shot, they're off. Or, ooh, the Rhine is coming up there, I can't whip shot the Rhine. You want to, and I'm gonna zoom in here, and I'm gonna kind of erase the messes. Erase the mess. Erase the messes going on here, and zoom in real quick. We look at the anatomy of how this high ground point is set up, and we say, okay, if I am this Rhine and I am pushing up here, I can put a sneaky little Brigader right here, shield bash this Rhine, and then suddenly he takes a shitload of damage and has to drop again. If they push up as 6, a Brigida left-clicking once is going to get so much value for that Inspire passive, right? The Inspire passive is what makes Brigida good. In a similar vein, the Lucio is very good at kind of denying this elevator pathway, or even if they're not playing a comp that uses elevator, right? Say they play the Winston tries to jump up, Lucio goes, boop, and the Winston's back down, right? So the Lucio and the Brig are innately very good at holding that high ground space. I know there's a concern on Ilios. Okay, Mercy, Lucio, maybe not enough healing, question mark. I'm willing to make the contestation that if you guys are playing the way that the comp wants to play, which is together as a group, that it should be quite enough healing. And if you remember that Volskaya map in particular, the Ilios map in particular, we actually did fairly well when it came to sustain. We took the points. I see your thing, Val. We took the points. All right, thanks for joining us. I'll reach out to you about DPS stuff after the fact. This is also recorded, so I'll send it to you later. When we are looking at this kind of high ground control, we consider those the innately good DPS. Remember for Ilios that as long as we're playing the comp in the optimal way for the supports, that the healing should be good enough so long as we're making use of our space and we're kiting if we need to properly. That's going to come down to the communication, as I reinforced on point 1, where you guys are communicating where you are going. So when I say, Derv, you're calling the rotations, that's kind of what I want you to focus on more as we move forward. You know, you're the IGL. You say, okay, my shield's going down. Were you backing up? We're backing up. Back up to corner. Back up to choke. Back up to back right. Right? Call where you are going so that your team can play around you. And so that when you kite back here, suddenly you don't have one go this way, one go this way, and one go this way. And now you're playing 3 separate team fights trying to look in on your own point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Alrighty. So that's kind of the big 2 things in regards to Volskaya. Second point, are there any specific questions about Volskaya second that you would like me to cover before we look at our gameplay?
Quick question about the comp.
Sure.
Would it be alright if I swap to Sombra if we ever do this on defense?
Sombra is good here for 2 reasons. Oh goodness, I'm back. There we go. Sombra controlling this mega is really strong as a denial point for their team. I know often you will see if teams are putting on point 1, one or two might split out here and try and take control of this mega, so that's a really good denial. Sombras are also very good, I believe, at denying dive characters, right? Think about a D.Va zooming up here. D.Va's a fantastic target to hack. Ball's a fantastic target to hack. Winston is a fantastic target to hack because when you hack them, their ability to do anything is nullified and you can get alt charger very quickly. I think Sombra's a very strong pick on second. I do think depending on their composition, if you feel like you are on the back foot, there may be stronger characters such as the Reaper, or even the Mei if you're having trouble with maintaining your space or maintaining your resources on your shield. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. All right, let's swap back over to the gameplay and see what we are looking at. Screen. Change windows. Screens. Screen 1. Swap to OBS. We are going to swap to window 1. Alrighty. Everyone see the game again?
Mhm.
Alright, so immediately, given what we know about Volskaya now, what should we be doing? Oh no, my cursor's
Typically
disappeared.
Top
That's-
left one.
Yeah. This high ground is really good. It is difficult to get to, especially if you guys just lost the point. And this is where a more mobile tank line can come in. This is something where, Derv, you're walking out of spawn, say 20% on Shatter. You're like, okay, maybe I can go Winston here. And the Winston and Zarya is actually very viable when you consider how Zarya wants to bubble Winston when Winston is getting ready to land in their team, or if he's taking the initial damage before he wants to jump out. It's very easy for Zarya to get charged there. So that is correct. I have totally lost my cursor, and that's really upsetting. But yes, this high ground right here is great. Boop. Let me see if I can swap to... Alright, there we go. I'm going to cursor back. Boink. Oh, where did I go? Holy crap. Defend objective A. I guess I just tabbed it back. Whoops. Defending objective A. Okay, we're losing objective A. Cool. Alright, we've got sort of an idea. Okay, we sort of kind of want to hold up in front here, but we need to make sure that we commit to that as a team. If you want to hold right here, what you want to make sure is that your DPS has that space to off angle. They take attack path 2, we're kind of putting that spam into them. We knock the Rhine down, that's fantastic from the Pharah. The Pharah knocking the Rhine down, you want to then look to maybe reprioritize the rest of their team because they don't have that big shield. You do have the Sigma in the way, but like this is such a juicy rocket to hit, right? Is that group of 3 right there. So make sure you're prioritizing the right targets as DPS. I know Val's not here. That's going to get to you. Alright, I love the off angle on the visor. This is really, really good. I see you looking at the Baptiste. That's fantastic. Bap is trying to lamp himself. You see that they tried to kind of hop across here. They took an immediate brawl onto point. And now this is going to be dependent on you guys being on top of your shot calling. You've committed Valkyrie, you've committed Visor. I don't want to see you commit grab here unless you're looking like you're going to go down 1 and you need to swing the fight. Get the Doom Fist. They bob. You get by Shatter. Alright.
Horrible grab. Oh my god.
The grab isn't that bad. There are better grabs, obviously, but you're obviously, when you hit the grab, you're out of the assumption, okay, my Rhine is going to live, Rhine can swing into that. The problem with kind of looking at it that way is that the consideration for who the priority grab target is kind of waned, right? The Rhine is providing value by being on the point, but you know who else is providing value by being on the point right now? Bob. And you cannot grab a Bob. Instead, what you can look to do is, oh look, Ash Sigma in a window, yeet. Or even, there's a fucking Lucio right here. We just kill the Lucio, we win. One of the things that I didn't mention when we were looking at Volskaya's second point is it's a huge defender's advantage, and that's true for every 2CP, where your spawn is right there, and their spawn is all the way over there. So the value of you getting a pick is innately much, much higher than it is for them. And if you get that Lucio, they have no supports. And all you have to do is kind of toe in, toe out on the point, wait for you guys to get close spawns, and then you immediately just win that fight by attrition. Right?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think I saw that Lucio.
It's okay. It's like these are the times to kind of think about that. Getting the main tank is great, but there is no follow-up. And I think you can obviously see that by looking at the VOD. Right? There's no ability to kind of follow up on this graph. Fire putting the damage into the Sigma. Gets picked out of the Bob. That's so sad. Alright, we die here. We get the soldier coming back. Soldier gets on point. That's fantastic. They're going to get first tick. The Moira kind of throws the orb in. Great orb. We give him the second tick. That's okay. Dropping the Ko. I love the Ko. Ben kills himself. That's fine.
I was punched off, and for some reason didn't say that he punched me.
That's okay. We're getting picks. We're getting picks. I'd make sure not to call any more ults here. Your value of picks is so high. They drop Flux. I don't care. There's no reason to care. You already have such an advantage. Look, free ult charge. Yeah. D.Va don't get D-Macked. D.Va don't get D-Macked. Alright, D.Va. Look, so much value for your supports. Yum, 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 yum. You go back. Oh, don't swap yet. Don't swap yet. Alright, you know why you shouldn't have swapped?
Charge?
Yeah, ult charge. Your supports get so much ult charge, and if you just step into spawn, you erase that for them. Your mark could be at like 50, 60. What's up, Dave?
I don't know. I said, oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
I tried playing the worst hero in the game. It's kind of
playing Sigrind. Double shield, okay. Double shield still kind of wants to maybe hold more of an aggressive angle. They're looking to brawl you very aggressively. They're onto your Sigma. Sigma uses hands. Sigma gets charged. Alright, look at this. I have an issue with this barrage, and I think it's rather obvious, but I want to see if you guys can spot it as well. Did I skip by it? Yeah, I did. Oops.
Might have. Yeah.
Alright, your Sigma's getting fucking bullied. That's rough. Alright. Find the Pharah right now, and I am trying to barrage this Baptiste. What am I doing wrong? Venom, I'm looking at you primarily because you're a DPS player, but this can go for anyone. Why is this no bueno?
Wait. Can you go back out to like a further...
His bat.
Bap
one where you can easily get two. You can get Lucio, you can get Sigma, you can even kill off the Ash.
Yeah, so it's not specifically the character, it's specifically kind of what they're
A
doing
priority.
and where they are, right?
Yeah.
This barrage is very, very hard to hit. He's in midair, he is moving. Also, he's got Immort, if I believe. However, you have this barrage, you have this barrage, you even have that barrage, or even that barrage is very good to hit. I think in this circumstance, Baptiste is probably the weakest character to try and barrage. Fuck, even trying to barrage this Doomfist coming out this door might even be more effective because he's easier to hit than Baptiste in midair. I say he's against the wall, but he is moving. That's really hard to lead, especially at that distance. I do not like that barrage for that reason. Surprisingly, you live through the barrage. Baptiste drops the Immort. Barrage doesn't get any value. Kill the Bap. Kill the Bap. Get the res on the Sigma. Mercy flies out. Get the Pulse Bomb. Get the Rhine. Excellent. We're playing the attrition here. I'm going to call this a fight win. You're 3v3. And you have your spawns coming in. Get the Sigma. Easy peasy. Ben, what are we doing?
Fight planning.
Yeah. What are we using?
What are we using?
Yeah. In this upcoming fight, what should we be doing? What are we using here?
Co. When they, I've no. I think I said Derb. Shatter when you get it. I called out for Spoon to Co when they come in.
So Ko is a great reactive ult here because you could probably suspect that given that you have nothing, they at least have 1 to 2. Ko is a fantastic reactive ult to use, especially if they're going to hit you with something like Shatter. When you call for the Ko, expressly talk about playing around their ultimates. If you think their Rhine is going to shatter you, alright, Ko reactively, watch out for Shatter. Ko reactively, watch out for Flux. Things like that. Additionally, Ryan's Arch Charge is relatively fast enough where you say, alright, let's play forward. We kite back, we try and get early Shatter.
Yeah.
Because you want to try and build that ult as quick as possible, and then you can be reactive with it. Farah's going to get the Mega. No, Farah, don't get the Mega. Do not do that. Let your support heal you, please. Taking their sweet time. We're holding way back on point. We're just giving them this choke point for free. Rest in pepperonis. They push on attack path 1 this time. They don't take the high ground. They drop beat. They drop Immort. Hit the fantastic Shatter. Clean up the Lucio. Get the Rhine, get the Rhine, get the... Alright, 1 fight. It's a 1 fight. No more ults. No more ults. Get picked, but it's fine. Spawn advantage. You get the Diva out of mech. It's even better. Can we get the Lucio? Can we get the Lucio? We get the Lucio. Even better. We're gonna clean up the fight. I like this chase. I like this chase. Alright, can't get anything more. Take the fucking elevator. Go up to high ground, please. You don't need to give them this. You don't need to give them this. You can contest these. You can kite it out. You have all this front space that these big ass walls, right? Look at this. Look at these walls. They're huge. They're just like my ego. You see that? They're massive. They're massive. These walls say this space is yours. These walls say the enemy team is going to come from here or here. And that's choke points that you can abuse. You can abuse them with the Pharah spam. You can abuse them with the double shield. You can abuse them by putting a sneaky Sombra right in the side and then get them as they come up. You have to abuse the space that's given to you, especially on Volskaya 2nd. Look, the Ashe is just sitting up there for free. No one's even contesting her. Why is the Ashe sitting there for free? Their tanks push down 1. The Ashe is sitting up there for free. Pharah goes on the flank. I love the Pharah flank. Alright, we're just kind of getting picked left and right. Let me kind of rewind. Let's see where the picks are coming from. These might just be positioning errors. Alright. Spoon. You have this natural cover, that's great. But to get to your tanks, what do you have to do?
My piss reach is really long, but if they move, I have to shift.
If you need to get to your tanks, if your tanks rotate this way, you have to cross this space. This bitch looking right at you. She knows you are here. She's going to throw a dynamite and try and get you on this corner even. Your positioning needs to be safe. Moira is good at close range. She is not a fantastic... Like, your Moira is not going to duel this Ashe and have a good day. You're already at roughly-ish half. You can play out of left. You don't need to play that. You know, you can top off your Sigma, make sure that you're charging your ult. You can look to bounce an orb off of this pillar and send it this way. You can play safely out of this left side. You know your Pharah's over here. You know you're not going to get flanked. You don't need to risk trying to cross here.
Okay.
There's a dynamite miss. You burn Fade, which is okay, because Fade is relatively cooling down, but you want to save Fade for that Doomfist coming in. Sig gets picked by the Ashe headshot. That's rough. Your Rhine gets picked by the Ashe. That's really rough. This Ashe is, you know, we didn't contest her. Remember, she got this space for free, and she's going plink, plink, plink. You know, neither of the tanks can contest her. The Moira can't contest her. We're relying on the Pharah to contest her. Pharah pushed her, but Pharah pushed her a bit late. She gets her tanks already. Zenyatta gets her supports. Ashe gets the Pharah. We're already down 4. They ult advantage us. We have to contest, but the Bob's there. Get it with 0.2 seconds. Any confusion about that? Any confusion as to why that was such an issue for us? Any confusion as to Volskaya's second point?
No, that seems pretty straightforward now. We can do better next time.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. What are the big takeaways from this VOD review then?
I learned that that we should hold up that top that front left more. Yeah, right there.
So
Because I used to I like doing that as Sigma a lot, but I never really thought to do it as Zarya.
1. Take space. I should not be using my pen or my mouse with. Take space. That's yours. Right? This space is free. There is no reason to give it to them uncontested. What is point number 2?
Call rotations.
Call rotations. 2. Rotations. If we are kiting backwards, whose job is it to say where we are going?
The tanks.
The IGL specifically.
Yeah.
This tends to be you, Derv. However, given that we're adding new rosters, it could be that someone was more naturally suited for this. It could end up being one of our supports. It could end up being even one of our DPS, though that's kind of unlikely. It is important that what are rotations? What do we do about our rotations? We coordinate rotations. Coordinate rotations. So that we know where we are going. There's one more kind of sort of third one. What is it?
Fight plan?
Fight plan. That's for you specifically, Ben, but also for other people who like to fight plan. I'm going to kind of list this as like a 3A, right? This is a very kind of side thing. It's more specific to a specific person. Fight plan. We say us, them, and what's the third one?
Where?
How.
How?
How are we going to do it? Us, them, and how. 3A, fight plan. Those are very, very important takeaways for us. In our upcoming scrim, I'm especially going to emphasize that you pay attention to number 1 and number 2. Garv, if you continue to IGL, I'm going to be more on you about this. It is very, very important that if you are kiting back, you communicate to your team where you are going so that they can go with you, right?
Oh.
If you need to stabilize in this kind of pocket space right here, in this pocket space right here, you say kite back left. So that your main support is sitting right here, and they have a little smiley face as they get their ult charge, and you get all of your health back. Okay?
All right.
And I don't in any way mean that to be sort of like putting down. I'm just going to be on you about it more, and I think you know that you need to be more vocal about that kind of thing. Okay, that is going to conclude the VOD review, unless there are any other questions about the VOD review or about Volskaya or about team comps. Anything you'd like to ask as a last minute question before we stop for the night?
Why did I play Lucio on attack?
that is that's an attack thing. Lucio works most effectively with a tank comp who he can speed very easily. The utility of Lucio is invaluable when you consider the choke points and spam being effective. Look at what we did to them, the Pharah that was looking at us. It was my belief that we could then take that fight to them more aggressively than they do to us, and that we would be tighter about our rotations when we were pushing as a group. And not only that, that we were playing counter DPS to any sort of air spam or any sort of spam that was trying to hold that high ground. Venom, in particular, is very good at abusing any character or any solo DPS that tries to set out on the high ground space. And that is playing to the strength of our team, where if they are playing out in the open, that we can then play in a way that is not going to be a problem for us. You are concerned about lack of heals. Lack of heals is not so much a concern when we are looking to take a fight quickly.
Okay.
Lack of heals only becomes a concern point if we're looking to create a sustained fight. But if we want quick, brutal, and efficient fights, then the Lucio doesn't really matter so much. Right? We have the Reaper, we have the Rhine, we have the Zarya. We have 3 extremely lethal close-range brawlers, so much so that the speed is going to enable them to be even more effective, and that the amp for the healing, plus the Reaper's passive healing, plus the Zarya bubble used as defensive resources is going to be enough for our team to play around without needing a more aggressive Moira. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Awesome. Alright, if there is nothing else, going once, going twice, 3 times. Alright. Thank you guys. I know this went an hour later than it usually does. Still not super happy our first scrim partner canceled on us, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Thank you for your time. We will probably do a more in-depth VOD review. We can look at one of the Ilias maps on Thursday. For the tryouts who are here, I need to go and speak with Peach about some of our tryouts tonight. I need to kind of think about what I saw, how I saw, what our team needs, and how we want to do it, and we're going to go from there. For supports, I know that Lion is trialing for a couple teams, and so one of our other supports from last week is also trialing for a couple teams. So it might be a little bit of time before we lock in our support picks, probably post-Friday. For our DPS position, I just need to check in with Venom and check in with Sanctimonious, who watched tonight, and then we'll go from there. So thank you, tryouts. We will probably not be doing another tryout session, and I will follow up with you guys separately. So thank you for your time, and have a good night.
Peace.
Man, Frosty out of there quick.